for joining us here with another webcast. We hope we're going to share a little bit of information that we've been gathering kind of over some of the things that CBTS has been bringing to some of our top retail customers and opportunities. I want to give a chance to, we've got two other members of the group here. John, why don't you kind of introduce yourself real quick and kind of give an introduction to the group here, who you are.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So John Lloyd, I've been with CBTS for about a decade, covered a myriad of different roles. And really right now, my main task or focus is understanding how can we look holistically around our customers. And so a lot of times we have a tendency to look for how do we solve the problem. We have customers that come to us and say, this is our challenge, this is what we're looking to solve, and we start diving in and we focus on solving that. And my job is really to continue to enable those efforts, but also understanding if we're solving from A to B, how do we play with C? What is on that other side? What do we need to be aware of? How can we continue down this journey, not just focusing on maybe the initial task in front of us? So really helping deliver a more unified organization to our partner channel and understand across all of our different pillars and technologies, how can we wrap them into one big solution?
Yeah, but it's kind of an exciting new group. You've got a couple members in your group as well, and that's what will happen is if we see an opportunity where we want to start to kind of go deeper in our organization, possibly on our partner's behalf, we'll pull your group in. So yeah, thank you. Alex, go ahead and give a quick introduction. A lot of people probably know you as well from some of the webcasts, but kind of say hello as well if you would.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Hey, everybody, Alexander Broom. Very nice to be here today. I'm a pre-sale engineering resource. I report to Matt Douglas. And really my job is to, make sure that the solutions that we're developing for clients solve business outcomes. It's less about picking a certain technology and making sure that those pieces all fit together, both between their existing solutions, maybe the other projects that they have going on, as well as future projects that are down the road. Because really the goal here is not to go in, like John said, and solve one problem. It's to build a framework that the clients can use to really, look forward and become a future-ready organization and have, deliver value back to their business operations.
Yep, that's a great point. Yeah, because we're always trying to work on those business outcomes. We're going to talk a little bit today, kind of those 4 cloud solutions. We're going to talk about how we use them, or SD-WAN, some new movement in security, particularly cloud security, kind of some advancements as well on the NAS, our LAN infrastructure stack. And then also actually some things even on UCaaS, some things around how key system still applies there that maybe some of you folks might not know about. So, but as we kind of start here, how many times have we run into this situation out there? In the past, what we found is that retail organizations often looked at the infrastructure, the amount of money they were spending on that infrastructure, kind of almost as the last thing they wanted to do. They wanted just to have that router, to have that Ethernet switch run as long as possible. And what we're seeing now, right, in the digitization of everything, right, the IoT expansion, cloud services, we're actually finding that retail organizations can't even serve food. We were lucky enough to do a 700 location hamburger chain in the South where we came in and brought our UCaaS solution and some custom services there, and come to find out they can't even serve a hamburger after 2 minutes without internet access. And so this kind of disparate world that we're finding out there really is the needs are changing, right? And we're finding actually the physical store in that plant is becoming more important than ever. And I know actually, John, you had used this slide, I think, in a presentation, kind of the National Retail Federation you did a couple of years ago, maybe. So talk a little bit about what you kind of learned there, what you've seen with some of this.
Yeah, so I think the first thing is understand we're coming out of this weird past year, right? So even before that, we saw retail organizations starting to shift from this idea of we've got to compete with AWS or Amazon Market, right? Everybody wants things shipped to the door. We've started to see, even pre-COVID, organizations saying, well, how do I start to offer that convenience, but also choice? So maybe I didn't want to pay for Amazon Prime. Maybe I didn't want to wait 3 days for my package. And so we did a lot of work with a specific retailer around how do we build the identity of a customer that can shop online, but the store is 10 minutes away. Wouldn't you rather just when you're out grabbing groceries, pop in and grab that item, right? In this case, it was a bookseller. And now when I'm in the store, I'm getting recognized by the device because I have intelligence, right? Internet of Things, I've got smart cameras. We partner with Meraki in that case for a lot of that technology. But now I've got this profile that says I've walked into the store. I've hit, that was DNA Spaces from Cisco's the technology there. My device has walked in. I've read that MAC address. Now I can see this person's in the store. I know they ordered this online for pickup. I've got it sitting at the concierge desk. And now I'm having a conversation with them. So I'm not saying people also bought, right, the recommended purchase. I have a live one-on-one interaction where I'm saying, you know, have you also read by this author, right? And I'm driving that ticket sale. I'm working with another retailer right now where they're developing their store of the future. And everything in retail is about dwell time. The more you stay in the store, the more money you spend.
Sure.
In their normal store, it's a 20-minute dwell time. People go in, they get their item, and they leave. And what we're working with them on the store of the future, we have one pilot deployed, and that has gone from 20 minutes to 120 minutes as their average dwell time. People are spending a lot more interactive experience. Well, how do I get interactive experience? A lot of that comes from, you know, you have here in the slide, virtual assistant. Maybe that's being able to try on clothes virtually in a closed retailer. Maybe that's being able to get advanced help without having to staff 30 employees walking the aisles. Maybe I have a digital screen to be able to do a one-to-many, a video consultation. And the point of all of this is it's really understanding how to adapt. What you're going to see coming out of COVID, and for those of you, and I think everybody across the U.S. lived in some phase of this, that lockdown period, that quarantine period, all of a sudden nobody wanted Amazon packages anymore. People couldn't wait to get out and go and interact and go to the stores. You know, Costco was turning people away because they were there not even to shop, but just to get out and enjoy that experience. And so I think you're going to see a lot more people embracing moving into the store. And so retailers have to capture, as I move into the store, how do I create a unique experience? How do I take advantage of this time that I have the customer to continue to make them a loyal customer?
Oh, it's a big deal. I mean, I think we've got that on the slide here, talking about how the stack now is becoming an enabler of those things we're looking for. And you mentioned, you know, about the customer experience, right? How we're starting to focus on dwell time, like you talked about. What are the tools that we can help to bring to this retailer to make sure that we've got a better customer experience, about the analytics of those things. We're going to talk a little bit later on about some cloud security, even physical security with cameras, and even really the voice. I've got the word here, voice customer experience down there. We're starting to see how we can do some things even on the voice side that are starting to give a better customer experience out there for retailers. So what we're going to, and a lot of you maybe on the webcast have seen this slide before from us, but these are what we kind of call our 4 pillars. These are some of the kind of the 4 key practices and tool sets that we'll bring to build some custom, you know, outcomes for customers out there. And it really ranges across anything to do on the UCaaS and CCaaS and WebEx side. You know, we've been delivering hosted call manager and hosted Broadworks now for going back over 15 years on both of those. We've taken and developed the entire Cisco Meraki line as a service. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the new things they've added there on the IoT sensors. The multi-platform SD-WAN practice. A lot of you on the webcast that we've worked with know that we can bring solutions from VeloCloud, Meraki, Viptela, any of those to the solution set, kind of dependent on what the outcomes that business customer needs. And we're doing a lot more on the cloud security. In particular, we're going to talk about Checkpoint today, but we can work with a number of kind of different cloud security providers. But these are really kind of the 4 main pillars of services that we will use to mix and match for a customer to build that kind of business outcome that Alex was referring to. And when we do this, by the way, this is a whole end-to-end, engagement. One of the things we talk about on our side is that our job in the channel is to make you guys look better, to make you a hero out there to your customer. And the biggest way that we can do that is delivery, right? I'm sure that all of you out there in the channel have had that experience of selling that opportunity, and suddenly that partner, that vendor is taking way too long to install or not installing properly. We spend a lot of time in this whole process. You talk about all the way from assigning professional project management, subject matter experts, kind of dependent on what pillar we're bringing those solutions from. And we talk about building what we call internally a network design document, kind of that Bible or blueprint for what's the business outcome, what's the solution that we're trying to deliver. And everything that we're talking about here, when we got equipment that we're going to install, is on-site install and repair of any equipment that they're getting from us. All 24/7 Midwestern support. We support free moves, adds, and changes. So let's say we put one of these solutions in or part of a solution and they want to make some changes 6 months down the road. We're not nickel and diming a customer to death for those changes. And everything that we're doing here, when it's got a web interface to be able to manage it, we're supporting co-management on that. So I want to just kind of, ground you again that these are the 4 pillars of services that we bring, and we spend a lot of time all the way from pre-sales through that, day 2 support, making sure that we deliver so that we're making you a hero and we're kind of, if you would, under promising and over delivering. Security. So we talked about we're going to bring up security here, right? And that clearly is a big challenge. And it's something that's changing, right? Well, I put the note up here that security is becoming part of the brand even for companies out there. I know, Alex, that you've done a lot of work on the security side because Alex, on our team, by the way, he's really kind of my SD-WAN expert. He actually helped launch our VeloCloud product going back 4 years ago. So Alex, talk a little bit about what you're seeing on the security side there as we worked with customers.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I think the most interesting thing is that although the environment is changing, how it's being secured has not really been changing until the last year. So a lot of customers over the past couple of years have been moving to SD-WAN. They've been refreshing their WAN, but they've still had a physical security appliance either in the retail store or back in their data center. And that's kind of, although it provided good security, it's kind of handicapped them in a way. It's made it more difficult for them to deploy SaaS-based offerings. It's made some of the things more challenging when it comes to, maintaining security policy across a large number of stores if you had a physical appliance at every store. And so one of the big shifts has been moving to a cloud solution. And there's obviously a bunch of choices in the market. It's a hot topic. Really, the key is that companies are looking for something that is going to improve the customer experience while maintaining their security. And I think that is the differentiator, really. It's enabling the security organizations to feel safe and make sure that their organization is protected, but also getting them the ability to finally, loosen the reins a little bit and giving the customers a better experience. And some of these SaaS offerings that are being investigated by the other portions of the business are critical to that. That's really been the key. So a cloud-based offering that can fit directly into a new SD-WAN deployment has really been an enabler that it will allow organizations to maintain a high level of security, but also investigate and deploy really innovative SaaS-based offerings.
And that's one of the things, did I not have this slide in here? Shoot. One of the things I wanted to talk about, and apparently dropped the slide out here, is that we have the ability, when we kind of talk about from a security perspective here, we have some customers that we still rely on the Meraki MX device at the edge to provide both that SD-WAN capabilities and the full UTM stack at the edge. But we're doing a lot of work with customers on the VeloCloud side where VeloCloud becomes the edge and we are then connecting to cloud-based security services. So you end up with a VeloCloud kind of routing domain, and then we use the kind of global gateway network on the VMware VeloCloud side to be able to connect into cloud-based security services. So you move that attack plane, that threat plane, away from their front door, deeper into the cloud. So one of the things I want you guys as partners to understand is when we come in and engage with a customer, we actually have the ability to work with them on the security side, whether we're going to stay and have all their security traffic, firewall traffic come back to a centralized data center, or they want to focus at maybe still keeping security in a UTM stack at the edge, or where they want to move to cloud security. CBTS can help them in anywhere in that journey. So Wi-Fi has certainly been changing. And I know, Alex, you've been involved with quite a few Wi-Fi deals lately, and I want you to talk a little bit even about one we just did with the big warehouse, but to talk a little bit, and John, you've dealt with some of these too. Either one of you guys kind of share with me a little bit what you've been seeing in Wi-Fi and how that's been changing.
Yeah, so over the last maybe 5 years, maybe even up to a decade now, we've seen clients that are interested in getting analytic information out of their Wi-Fi environments. Meraki's really been a leader in that aspect. There's a ton of valuable data around foot traffic and repeat visitors, things like that, that's been available for a long time. One of the areas that's a little bit newer that's very interesting to customers is being able to actually build a unique customer guest experience for their users, for their clients, right? Like John said, when they walk into the store, having them be recognized as a repeat guest, as a loyalty member, as somebody who has an order, sitting at the concierge desk. That type of integration into their other platforms really drives that customer engagement and makes it feel, like an actual a visit to not just a brick and mortar, grocery store type experience where you're picking something off of a shelf, but an actual interactive experience where you get to participate and get something more out of the visit.
Yeah, I think what I would add, from that standpoint, Alex, you bring up a great point, and that is really that loyalty and that repeat customer. Our partners have this really unique opportunity. In the past, IT was a cost center. You had to go to a retailer or any business, but you had to go to these retailers and say, give us $1 million today, and we can increase spend by XYZ over the next 4 years to recoup it. What CBTS brings to the table with our as-a-service model, you don't need to make this big upfront investment. And so we can say, look, we can put this technology in that is going to bring back to your marketing department. It's going to bring back to your sales department, your lead gen department. It's going to tie in. Matt has the robust API on there, and I think that's it. How do we start to take investments you've made in other parts of the retail business and tie that into your wireless experience? We worked with a customer recently. For them, it was wait times. So they had different. This was a big arena type environment, and so what was the wait time at this concession stand versus that concession stand to drive the customer, rather than saying, I'm not going to wait in that line, I just won't get a corn dog, to say, oh, if I just go one section over, there's no wait, and now I'm spending that $7, or depending on where you're at across the country, $12 for a corn dog at a baseball game, right? And so that's what I think is our unique perspective, is we're not saying you've got to spend money. We're saying we can actually make you money. And by the way, you don't have to make this crazy upfront investment. That's a really unique position that I don't think in my career IT's really ever been in until recently. And the buying model with CBTS just removes that barrier to entry.
That's a great point, because more and more when we engage with customers, we're starting to work with other business, kind of owners of business silos, the marketing group, contact center folks, because it's not just this IT decision. It's not just an IT decision anymore. It's about how do we continue to help with that digital experience, which is affecting other parts of the business. And so, these solutions now can oftentimes be about driving better customer experience, driving increased income, dwell time, and those things that were typically not in the IT group. That's a great point.
Yeah, I just kind of want to have one more add in there.
Sure.
Interesting engagement for me recently is a very large national retailer. Customer experience is the core tenet of their business, and getting and working with that organization as a part of the IT transformation project has been, revolutionary. It took a project which, as John mentioned before, would have, been very much around cost and, how are we going to fit this into the budget over the next few years, and turned it into just that, right? Giving the business an option to not only get enhanced performance with a better network and new analytics, but also actually, tie directly into the initiatives of their customer experience organization.
That's great. Yeah, absolutely. Cameras have been changing quite a bit, right? This is a big part of the Meraki change recently in the last couple of years is cameras, and now just in the last year, IoT sensors. And Alex, I think as well, you've been seeing some more opportunities. Some people a lot of times have thought that the cameras were a little expensive on the Meraki side, but this has been changing the perception and the value proposition. I think, John, you probably got some feedback here too, but Alex, talk a little bit about some of the camera opportunities you've been dealing with lately.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So a couple different really interesting opportunities, one being traditionally the customer thought they really just wanted a security system. And once they realized that the cameras are more than just, a video wall of security events, but they can also, you can get information about where customers are in the store, right? Are they looking at this wall with these products longer than a different wall? You can get information out of them that is important when it comes to store planning. It doesn't seem like a big area, until you realize that the store planning aspect of where product is in the store really drives sales. And so it was important for them to make sure that they were putting the things that were most important to their business, or maybe on sale or featured product, in an area that had foot traffic, so that people would stop and look at it.
Yeah, it's very similar. I worked with a very large on smart shelf technology that used a lot of the same stuff. And what they found was that the average person ends up looking at, let's say you go to the toothpaste aisle and there's 8 brands. You look at 2 brands and you end up buying the one you saw first. And so what they were able to garner all of this data, package it, utilize it, right? Because data is only as useful as it is consumable. And they were able to actually change their dynamic pricing to those people. If you want this spot on the shelf, 80% of people see this product first. Of those 80% of the people, another 75 bought that product after looking at something else, right? So they were able to monetize it. There's another path that I want to make sure we call out here, because the theme that you're going to continue to hear from me with retail is that this technology not only pays for itself, but makes money for the end customer. But one of those ways isn't just increased revenue, and I think you have sensors on here. In the restaurant industry, this is critical. Starting to look at temperatures inside of coolers, looking at what you would call spoil costs, or food. If a retail customer or a restaurant customer has a freezer or a cooler that goes out in the middle of the night, it can not only be thousands of dollars of inventory gone, but also that's the inventory they needed for the next day, and so now those sales are lost. And so this idea of being able to monitor across your network your mission-critical dollar statements, or secure access, right? Maybe you need to meet certain compliances inside your retail environment, and simply having a sensor that alerts and tracks when people enter a secured room and creates a log of it allows you to reach that, especially as you start talking about security in a retail space with money handling and changing hands. And so I think these are creative ways to go and start to talk to a customer. We see it a lot in the fast food chain restaurant sort of environment of lost revenue, lost product that we're able to prevent with this kind of a warning system.
Well, because you can, the API that Meraki has, combining these tool sets, so something as simple as when a door opens and closes, a picture could be taken and that could be sent somewhere, or a door opens and closes and you can sense what's going on with that particular person. These are the things, the power that's coming out of this API and some of the tools that Meraki has, along with third parties. Gabby, are there any questions, anything that have come up as we've been talking?
A couple questions did come through. One was around Wi-Fi. Do you have experience in implementing larger Wi-Fi deals?
Larger Wi-Fi deals
Such as like warehouses, things like that.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Interestingly, yes, we've been doing more of that. In fact, Alex, we're in the middle of one right now, right, for a nationwide warehouse chain?
Yeah, that's correct. We recently have done an opportunity for a nationwide warehouser. This particular warehouse space is about 500,000 square foot, and we've done a total Wi-Fi deployment to support their new, scanning for inventory, right? So anytime that an item is stocked or taken off the shelf, it has to be scanned. And, obviously a warehouse environment is very complex. There's a lot of signal loss because of the shelving and things like that. And, they need these scanners to work. If an employee has to walk to get the object and then walk all the way back to the end of the aisle just to scan it, and then it's the wrong one, or, they needed 2 of them instead of 1, they got to walk all the way back. So it really does, impact performance and, the bottom line. And so we do have a lot of experience in larger deployments. Warehouses are not the only area. We've also done large deployments inside of healthcare, inside of large office buildings. Some of the retail environments we've been in, obviously, are larger spaces and have, 2 dozen, 3 dozen APs. And that coverage is important, especially as you start to use these access points for more than just providing, internet connections, right? If you want to use them to provide this enhanced analytics and people tracking and customer experience initiatives, you need to have good coverage, because that will directly impact how the experience is for the client.
And I think, Alex, more AP doesn't equal good coverage in all cases. And I think, when you have these predictive studies and you can upload a group, Alex and I actually worked jointly with a customer in New York City, and they were in Rockefeller Center, right? So there's all these office buildings, and I think they kept adding APs, and they had 40 APs across 2 floors of an office space. But the interference that was coming from other SSIDs, other APs from other businesses, and that was a methodical approach of tweaking antenna powers and how do we start to continue. So it's not just, I want more APs. We had a similar experience with a college campus that actually had too many APs, and we had to pull some out. And so I think that's the value of, it's not just, hey, are you really good at counting how many APs need to be put in? It's Wi-Fi is actually very complex to deliver a business outcome like Alex is talking about. When you're in these spaces that rely on Wi-Fi to stay up and to do business, it's not just where should we hang an AP. And so I think that guidance is mission critical.
No, it's a great point. I wanted to get on and talk a little bit about UCaaS, but before I go there, Gabby, were there any other questions?
Yes, one did come through around the slide that you're actually currently on. So are you guys seeing more and more opportunities that involve the cameras and sensors? Do you have experience in implementing those?
So we kind of talked about that when Alex was saying there absolutely is. When you went back when they first announced these cameras a couple of years ago, it wasn't happening as much, but as these cameras have come on, the capabilities of them to pull analytics. I mean, here's a slide. We haven't gotten this yet, but this is literally about the ability of Meraki's API talking to third parties, in this case, a company called Every Angle, that can literally take a look and start to do analytics on the gender of people coming in, their emotions, even how they're coming in here. This is another example of using the same thing of being able to tell with a camera when somebody's coming in whether they're wearing a face mask, and if they're not, then being able to send an alert, etc. So I think that's really, and Alex mentioned earlier, we think of cameras in the past as kind of just this wall of security, and we're just going to record everything, and if we need to go back and take a look at it for what happened last Tuesday, we can. But this is now more about real analytics, about real life situations, getting alerted on those things, making other business decisions than just kind of keeping an archive of tapes of every location. So yeah, that's it. It has certainly changed quite a bit how we're using these things. I want to talk, well, there's SD-WAN here. Let's talk a little bit about that. This is certainly, continues to be an exploding segment for us. We mentioned earlier in the kind of 4 pillars that we really have 3 different platforms that we work from: the VeloCloud platform, the Meraki platform, and the Viptela platform. And it's really kind of when we meet with you and meet with your customer, trying to understand what are the business outcomes they're looking for. We've got a number of situations, like we've got a 1,500 site pizza retailer that the Meraki solution at the edge was the perfect solution for them. We took Meraki at the edge, Meraki access points, Cisco phones, and deliver that whole technology stack for them. Other customers that we meet with, we're in the middle right now, the 60 opportunity set of warehouses, et cetera, that really need some of the forward error correction, some of the kind of more application packet-based aware things that VeloCloud brings. And so that really looks like it's going to be the best solution there. But I wanted to kind of throw this slide up to let you guys know that we've got quite a few things in our toolkit, and it just makes a difference about which particular business outcome we're trying to solve is what we're going to pull in. Oh, this was the slide I wanted to have earlier. I forgot it was here. This again talked about, we mentioned security. And if you imagine that you've got a branch down here, right, and it has, in this case, a VeloCloud edge, got a branch or a data center over here with a VeloCloud, and then the idea of VeloCloud gateways, we really can come in with a customer and work with them to decide where kind of they want to insert the security, if they would. We can stay with security at each branch, okay, whether we have a separate appliance there or even a virtual instance of a firewall inside the VeloCloud box. We have other customers that are like, okay, no, we find out a lot of times in retail, in finance or healthcare, that they need the Velo Cloud network, but they still want to take all that traffic back to a data center. They're just used to a common firewall coming out of a data center, and we can support that. But Alex mentioned earlier, we've seen just an explosion in the last year of cloud security services. And you'll typically get names like Palo Alto Prisma, Zscaler, Checkpoint's CloudGuard product, which is now called Harmony. Symantec has a product. There's a number out there. But Velo Cloud's fabric in particular allows us to use this global network of gateways to connect to these cloud services. And I mentioned earlier, kind of talk about taking that day zero attack plane and moving that away from their front door. And so this basically stack of services here is the full unified threat management of all the web filtering and data loss prevention, IDS, IPS, kind of layer 7 application aware security services you expect. And we've now moved that up into a cloud environment. And in fact, even inside of an environment like this, you can even determine that you're going to say, maybe take your guest Wi-Fi and treat it separately, maybe treat it locally for security, but you're going to take employee traffic and take it up to cloud or other things. And so you can even segment your security usage across this. So I'd forgotten I had this slide. John or Alex, is there anything you want to kind of add about this idea of the multiple security insertion points?
Yeah, I'd kind of like to just add in that I think the key is segmentation, right? So one of the main reasons that on-premise security had been the de facto for so long in retail was PCI traffic. There was PCI traffic that existed both locally and back to the data center, and that's moving, that's gone. I mean, if you go buy a new system, all that traffic goes to the cloud. It's all SaaS-based now. So that's number one. Number two is more and more organizations are trying to make their entire technology environment as resilient as possible. Moving to a cloud security solution is just like that. It's just like moving those servers out of your data center or out of your local retail facility into AWS or Azure or into a virtualized platform. It's the same concept. What you don't want is you don't want to be tied to something that can fail, that isn't scalable, that has complicated management and potential security risks. If a day zero attack comes out and is identified, now you've got to patch all these devices across your entire network. That's really been the catalyst for the shift. And I think it started with just the need to get that PCI traffic secured. But now that it was in the cloud, how are you going to secure it across the internet versus just inside your branch?
And I think the key point around security in the past, with retail, it always seemed a firewall and maybe PCI compliance. And obviously, we just saw recently with the pipeline issue and ransomware, it's not a firewall. I got to meet last night for dinner with a client, a CIO, so it was cool to see a person again. But the conversation we had was his biggest threat to security in his network is his employees. And it doesn't matter what he does. At the end of the day, he's got about 200 or so employees, and they are all, 20 of them are failed their phishing attacks that they, self-phish every month or whatever, including C-levels. They're going to click the link. And so I think that's where you start to talk about, to Alex's point, of needing to continue to stay up to date. So, sandboxing and detonating a link. So that email being in the cloud, I've got 365 in the cloud. I've got, say, CloudGuard SaaS on the Harmony platform that's now taking that email, sending it through, it's detonating that link, and it's making sure that it's safe. And we talk about you're never going to train 100% of your employees to spot it, to not enter the password, to not click the link. Now think about retail, and you think about the turnover that they have in the seasonal employees. They're not able to do the same advanced training of the end user employee. And that's where I really think it's not just about the insertion points and the flexibility, but whether it's getting those features that are needed to protect you in the cloud, or being able to build a zero trust, right? To Alex's point of segmentation, that when it does happen, it doesn't happen across the board, that it gets isolated, because retailers are the first ones that are going to pay the ransom, because every second that ticks by, they're losing more and more money. And so I think it is mission critical to start having, if you've not had these conversations with retailers, it's probably front of mind to them after the last 2 weeks.
Yep, that's a great point. All right, I want to go on here and talk a little bit about telephones. In some regard, it can be kind of, well, okay, that's boring. We've now been delivering UCaaS for a long time. What's the point? It really, we're seeing in the retail space a need for a set of features that's called key system. We've got our Cisco powered platform. We've got call management. We've got BroadSoft in the core. We've been doing these things for, like I said, over 15 years. But what we've found in the retail space is that there really still is a need for the functionality of kind of the feature sets of a traditional key system. In a traditional key system, you've got a number of lines coming in. You got your main line coming in on line 1, and maybe I've got rollover lines, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, let's say. And those lines also then appear on every single phone, right? Now, problem with that, of course, is if I get the 7th caller, I'm going to be throwing a busy signal, right? But other than that busy signal problem, one of the great things about a traditional key system was when I took a phone call from a customer, and I'm talking to Sally. Sally's got an issue with an order. Bob's got an issue with an order. I put them on hold, but when I put them on hold, every single phone, that user, that caller is on every phone blinking. So I can scream to my manager to pick it up on line 1. I could go back to the warehouse, check an order. Let's say I go back to the warehouse and pick that order up. And so that caller who was on hold was available on every phone. I could pick it up from every phone, and I had a blinking reminder, right? And so it was always easy to train on, right? And because a lot of in retail, right, I'm working with entry-level folks, but I have problems with busy signals. There's no question we're not putting phone systems out there anymore, and it's not particularly flexible. Well, we all come in the PBX world, the UCaaS world, and I was actually guilty of this going back 5 or 6 years ago, and we think, okay, this is going to be easy. We're just going to put 4 phones just like they had before. Everybody's going to have an extension, but I'm going to put them in a hunt group. And I'm going to make that hunt group ring everybody's phone, right, when somebody call comes in, and I'm going to take that on a particular station. But now if I've got to put them on hold, right, I've either got to put it on hold on my phone only, or I got to park it to the cloud. Well, when I park it to the cloud, that phone call's not showing up in any phone. I got to remember what extension to park it to, and I got to, it's a complex set of, commands to pull it down. And so what we found out really quick, and we weren't the only ones, but trying to take what would be a PBX environment with hunt groups and cloud, call park in the cloud, just simply doesn't work in a retail environment. It's hard to remember what extension it's parked to. It's hard to remember the particular commands. It's not blinking anywhere anymore, so I'm not sure who I've got on the, who's been on the call, right? And it's just simply, it's hard to train, and it's not that easy to use. And one of the things that we have gotten very good at in CBTS is taking our technology and being able to actually kind of build a hybrid system in the cloud, so that now I've got a main line that's coming in. I can still then ring all these phones, right? And let's say I pick it up on the front phone at the front desk. I put a customer on hold, and they're going to be, the light's going to light up on my line appearances across every single phone. So I know that I've got somebody on hold. And so if I had 6 people on hold, I'd have 6 blinking lights and be able to keep track of that, right? And so it mimics the old key system. So now when I can take that person up front, put them on hold, walk back to the warehouse and get that. So I've got that same easy to train on experience, even though we've moved all the call control in the cloud. Now, at the same time, because I've got call control in the cloud, let's say I get to a situation where every single phone line's busy. This happens, we do this, again, I mentioned that 1,500 location pizza chain we work with. This is what we do with them, right? So we have a situation where, okay, it's a busy Friday night, everybody's taking a phone call. We then have also built a queue in the cloud. So we can take that, in this case it was a 6-line system, that 7th caller to whatever. We typically, in this case, would go 7 to 15. We kind of hold them up to 15 folks was enough. But we've been able to take that key system where we put somebody on hold, can go to any station, see it blinking and pick it up easily so I can train on it. And then if it gets busy, I can move those to a cloud queue to be able to let people know they're still being taken care of, et cetera. So I get away from busy signals. There's no more busy signals. I got it simple like a traditional key system, but then I can queue those callers and give them a better experience, right? Now, we also then have started to expand that for a number of retailers, where what about if instead of that main line coming directly into this kind of cloud key system, what about if we also take this to an IVR, cloud artificial intelligence, if you would, kind of augmented IVR? And what we found is that we can start to even then layer on a better customer experience. So a call comes in, we can start to do a thing we call call diversion, where we can give them information about kind of the hours or the directions to a store, or even if that store is open, right? Because we can do database diffs. A call comes in, we know where that call is coming from. We can take that caller ID, map it to a customer, and say, okay, your order's ready, or your order's such and such, or tell them, okay, your local store is closed due to this. We had this with COVID with a number of retailers, as well as kind of peel calls off for catering, call center, that kind of thing. And then what we've also found is that now if we've got all these calls come onto our cloud, our retailers are starting to work with other third parties to actually start to experiment with voice recognition and full natural language recognition for ordering these kinds of things. So I guess the point of the slides I wanted to show here was that we've gotten very good at using these cloud telephony tools to be able to not only mimic what is easy to train in a key system, but then to be able to layer on a number of next generation call diversion, database tips, these kinds of things. And we'd love to explore this with your customers. Any other questions we had come in, Gabby, as I was yapping there?
No, we haven't.
Okay.
Can I just add it? I was trying to talk there. Can I just add a point there?
Oh, please.
I think the key to this approach is the number one thing that I've heard across all my retail clients is if you go talk to the business side of the house instead of the IT side of the house, number one thing on their minds is you can't disrupt my operations with your new technology, right? All the new features in the world, as great as they might be and as amazing as they might, give future opportunities and, voice recognition and all those things, those are awesome. We want to be able to get our clients, those to use them, but we've got to have a system that maintains their store's operations and doesn't cause a massive disruption event, right? Just like Matt said, being easy to use, not having to retrain employees, that is critical, because that, if you had to go through all that, then the voice recognition and all the other things that you could have done would have been out the window. So I think that's really the key to this here, is that this is an enabler to let those stores have that same employee experience, do their normal day jobs, but then allow the IT side of the business and the other side of the business operations to get these enhanced functionalities that they couldn't before.
Yep. I'll just leave you with a couple images here. Like we appreciate everybody taking the time with us. We hope that this has been useful. But really, I hope if we leave you with anything is that we have a wealth of experience in the retail space using these cloud technologies, whether it's UCaaS, whether it's anything to do kind of on the cloud networking or Meraki NAS stack, the SD-WAN side, cloud security. We've gotten very good at coming in, meeting with your customers, understanding the business outcomes, the financial constraints they have, and seeing what parts and pieces are going to possibly fit inside of inside of the solution for your customer. I'll leave you here with this slide again. We hope that you've seen here we've got some retail experience. John or Alex, any particular parting words? You don't have to, but if there's anything you want to say, feel free to.
I would part with this. Hopefully the reoccurring theme is that CBTS is customer focused, and Alex started with talking about business outcomes. As you talk through the kind of the key system in the cloud, we see a lot of people in this space say, wait it out. They've got an aged 10-year, 15-year key system. At some point, it's going to die. Nobody's buying new key systems. Wait it out, and they'll come to us. Why change our business model? And I think CBTS, we take the exact opposite approach, which is how do we take technology and fit it to that end customer? And that's a giant differentiator. Alex talked about being able to appease the operational side of the house as well as the IT. we talked about the idea of taking technology and literally making revenue for customers or saving inventory, lost dollars. These are ways that remove the barrier to conversation. We know these retailers have hundreds of companies calling on them trying to sell something. And so what we try to do through our partner channel is build technologies that are a differentiator, that when they get the same pitch 10 times in a row, ours sticks out differently as flexible, as designed to meet their needs, and really hopefully brings through the experience that we have. Our first retailer, we didn't knock it out of the park with this sort of customization, right? These are things that we said, we think we could do that. And then we got better, and then they pushed us to get better, and we developed things with retailers, and then we won more retailers, and then we started to get a bigger example. And so that retail experience that we bring is really beneficial for the end customer, and I hope from our partners, you guys look at this as an opportunity to bring CBTS in to have a different conversation than maybe you've had in the past with your retail customers.
Well, that's very well said, John. Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, thanks for joining us today in the webcast. We hope these series have been useful. As always, screen for anything. Alex and I are on the sales engineering side. We support you guys in the channel. We'll come running for anything. We'll pull all the resources we need. So thank you for joining us today. It's been fun as usual. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Matt.